Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Beth Feltner. I'm the manager of clinical services at Wavefront Centre for Communication Accessibility. Thank you for joining our webinar tonight, Hear Better, Live Better, Understanding Hearing Loss and Tinnitus. Our presenter this evening is Rebecca Angel, who is our Director of Audiology and Business Transformation.
Thank you, Beth. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this community session on understanding hearing loss and tinnitus. As Beth mentioned, my name is Rebecca, and I'm an audiologist at Wavefront and the director there. And we're a nonprofit organization that's been supporting people with hearing and communication needs for almost 70 years. So I'm passionate about providing hearing health education to our community. And, at a time where information, whether true or false, is always at our fingertips, today is all about learning. So we're going to look at understanding how we hear. I have some goals and objectives for everybody that after we finish, I hope that everybody will have a better understanding of the hearing process, why hearing health matters, and the impact of untreated hearing loss, understanding tinnitus or ringing in the ears and its relationship to hearing loss, and some strategies that can help alleviate your symptoms. We'll briefly talk about advancements in hearing technology, and then we'll finish with what to expect at a hearing assessment. So, hearing is a very complex process, and it involves many different things all working together. Um, and it first involves three parts of the ear. So we have our outer ear, the middle ear, and then our inner ear, which is where you see it circled here. So sound waves travel through the outer ear to the eardrum, and it vibrates these three little bones in the ear, the smallest bone in the body, actually. And these vibrations move into the inner ear where we have thousands of hair cells in the cochlea, or this little snail shell here.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
We have a question that's coming up saying that they're not able to see the interpreter
Okay.
and that they're not able to pin myself. So I'm not sure how to respond to that.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know. I
Mhm.
can't see anyone. I can only see my slides. So please do speak up if something is not going well. Stephen, do you think you can assess the pin or um,
Yep.
maybe
I've just
we can?
I've just pinned you, Cheryl. So just wondering if folks can see that now.
Yeah, there's a couple people saying that they can't.
If you go to the top right on your screen, there should be a view button there, and you should be able to see all of the presenters listed. Unfortunately, yeah, I feel like folks can see it. The sizing is all set on your screen, not ours. So there's a view button on the top left. If you're looking at an iPad, there might be a challenge with that, but if you're looking at a desktop computer, you should be able to change the sizes there. Okay, I'm seeing folks saying that they can see now, which is amazing. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
everyone clarifying that. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll go back here just for anyone who might have missed the objectives with the interpreters. And if we still have issues, just, yeah, let me know. Okay. Um, so just to recap, we're going to hopefully leave today with a better understanding of how we hear, why it's important, and the impact of untreated hearing loss, understanding tinnitus or ringing in the ears and its relationship to hearing loss, some strategies that can help us alleviate the symptoms, a brief chat about some advancements in hearing technology, and then we'll finish with what to expect at a hearing test at Wavefront Centre. So hearing is a really complex process, and lots of things have to go right for all of this to work. But it first involves three parts of the ear. So we have the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. And sound waves travel through space, and they get, funneled through the outer ear into the outer ear, which moves our eardrum back and forth. And it sets the three little bones into motion. And these vibrations send signals into our inner ear, which is the cochlea, this little snail shell here. And that's where we have thousands of hair cells that are converting these signals into an electrical signal that are then sent along the auditory nerve up to the brain. So hearing loss can occur at any part of this system, and understanding where the hearing loss is happening is kind of the first step to guiding treatment. The most common cause or causes of hearing loss is just a natural part of aging and noise exposure. This typically affects our inner hair cells, so inside that little snail shell in the cochlea. And we can see some damaged hair cells here. And then we have this sort of degraded signal that's going up to the brain. So while our ears are collecting the sound, it's actually the brain that is helping us to interpret the meaning of that sound. So that's why we sometimes say, we hear with our brain. And hearing plays a big role in, how we connect and how we engage and how we feel part of the world around us. And when the hearing is reduced, communication can become a little bit more effortful. So over time, this can lead to listening fatigue. We can withdraw from social engagements, things that we used to like to do. And it also has this increase in our cognitive load. So, when we start to disengage and we start to withdraw from these social events, this, in turn impacts our overall well-being, our relationships. The auditory cortex is like a muscle. So if we're not using it, we lose it. And over time, our brain can sort of adapt to this decreased signal. Our brains are kind of amazing in that they start to rely on our other senses a little bit more. And so, it helps us to cope, but it is not without this increase in cognitive load. So over time, we're sort of working harder to process the sound. So, this increase in cognitive load can lead us to feeling more tired at the end of the day. You're going to withdraw from some of those noisy situations where there's lots of conversations happening, different events, due to communication difficulties. I remember my dad had untreated hearing loss for a long time, and sitting at the dinner table with lots of people was really difficult for him, and, didn't always feel supported during that time and would often leave the table early. Because it was just easier to kind of remove himself from those situations rather than this feeling of, being misunderstood, frustrated, having miscommunications. Of course, this leads to strained relationships, miscommunication, emotional distance. We can feel frustrated and misunderstood. And all of this together, has a big impact on our mental health, our brain health, and just our overall quality of life. So simply just being aware of any hearing loss, since it happens really gradually sometimes, is a good place to start. So I have a poll just to get some engagement from the audience. Stephen will pop it up, and then if you can answer, it's a multi-choice question on when was the last time you had your hearing tested. So we have within the last year, 1 to 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago, and I've never had my hearing tested before.
We'll just let this go for another moment.
I think it shows us the results after, right? Yeah. Okay, well, that's nice to see that the smallest percentage have never had their hearing tested. So yeah, we've got a good variety of mix here. So some stats like hearing loss in Canada specifically, nearly 1 in 5 Canadians over age 60 experience some degree of hearing loss. So it's very prevalent, in the world, but it's prevalent in Canada. Um, and most wait, anywhere from 5 to 7 years before seeking any help. So they sort of just get by and live with it. And then there's many Canadians between the age of 40 and 70 who are completely unaware that they have any hearing loss. And as we know, the prevalence of hearing loss rises with as we age. So more than 65% of people over the age of 70 have a measurable hearing loss. Um, there are some studies that show we might be exposed to more hazardous noise. An increase in noise exposure in the future might impact these stats. Um, my husband does projects in the garage and doesn't always have his hearing protection on, and it's just one of those things that we often ignore or forget. So always protect your hearing in any sort of recreational noise. And the other interesting stat is about 28% of those who could benefit from hearing aids actually use them. Some common symptoms of hearing loss is asking people to repeat themselves. Others sound like they're mumbling. We see this one a lot, like it's not me, it's them, and it's always situational. Um, Turning up the volume on the TV, difficulty hearing over the phone. Um, Really common is understanding speech, especially in noise. So noise is tricky for everybody, even people with normal hearing, but you might start to notice, more difficulty conversing in background noise. You might feel more tired after social events or find yourself reading people's lips a little bit more, mishearing words. Um, cat versus sat, for example, and experiencing ringing in your ears can also be a symptom of hearing loss. So I have another question for the audience. Have you ever experienced ringing, buzzing, or other sounds in your ears when it was quiet? So frequently, occasionally, only after a concert or something like that, or never? Okay, yeah, so also very common. Um, Frequently, occasionally, I've definitely had ringing in my ears after a concert and never. Okay, so that brings us into tinnitus, which is definitely related to uh, hearing and the hearing organ. Um, so tinnitus is the perception of sound. So, there's a few different forms of tinnitus. Some people call it tinnitus. Both are correct. I say tinnitus. Um, I'll be talking about, the most common form, which is a subjective tinnitus, which is something that um, we can't attribute to an environmental source. So it originates within our head and it's involuntary. Um, and it can be kind of categorized as ringing, buzzing, whistling, hissing, shushing in the ear without any external source. So, a very common auditory condition. And this can range from mildly distracting to profoundly disturbing to daily life. So it can really have a variety of impacts on different people. It can be temporary, persistent. It can vary in intensity, and the sound might change from time to time. Um, Noise exposure is a really common thing that we see. When we're exposed to loud noise, our hair cells have to work really hard and then they get tired. So we're kind of having this sort of temporary hearing loss that's occurring. That can cause us to have a ringing in our ears. Sudden loud noise, like a sudden impact loud noise. Um, Head and neck injuries, sometimes TMJ or temporomandibular, like joint issues can cause some ringing, reaction to certain medications, or just simply a natural aging process. One thing that we do know is that emotional distress can cause the tinnitus or make the tinnitus seem a lot worse or louder. Um, the most common underlying cause of tinnitus is actually hearing loss. So, um, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So, millions of Canadians experience tinnitus. About 1 in 7 people have a persistent tinnitus, something that's there all the time. And 10 to 20% of adults experience this long term. So they're kind of living with tinnitus for many years. 90% of people with tinnitus also have a measurable hearing loss. So they really do kind of go together a lot of the time. There's lots of research trying to figure out what causes this, and there's never, really been one exact cause or a cure per se. So it's still sort of inconclusive, and there's likely many different causes. Some experts believe that it could be related to the brain trying to adapt to this loss in hair cells. So we're sort of creating a sound in our brains. And it sort of starts this distress response. And, the more we think about it, or listen for it, the louder that the sound can get. So, there are different types of things that can help, whether it's, sound therapy, having background noise on, like a radio, going to sleep with some white noise, different types of counseling, and hearing aids can actually help the tinnitus seem less bothersome. So at Wavefront Centre, we have audiologists that receive extra training and are certified in the management of tinnitus. So sometimes it requires just a few visits, sometimes it requires a lot of visits, but they're really well trained on kind of managing the different symptoms of tinnitus. So I sort of recommend beginning with like a consultation with an expert. It'll always start with a hearing test, kind of figure out if there's any hearing loss there, any other causes for the tinnitus, and really seeing someone who sort of specializes in tinnitus management. So acquiring tinnitus, some people just get it out of nowhere. Sometimes it's something that happens gradually over time and then it seems louder. So it can be like moving from the quiet, beautiful countryside to a house near the train tracks. So the people who have been living near the train tracks for a long time probably find that they don't hear the trains as much unless they're actually, really actively listening for them. And this is kind of the idea or the goal of tinnitus management is helping the brain habituate to that noise in our head so that you can try and start to become a little bit less aware of it. Because the brain, it plays a big role in hearing, it plays a big role in tinnitus too. So when we have a hearing loss and the hearing is reduced, there's this damage to the peripheral auditory system. And that means there's less auditory input going through the auditory pathway to the brain. So the brain can try to make up for this loss of input by kind of creating a sound in our head, or us perceiving a sound in our head that can't really be attributed to any other environmental source. So, when we hear something, and our brain is trying to make sense of that, it does a lot. Is it a new sound? Is it a familiar sound? Is it someone I know speaking with me, or is it my favorite song is playing? When it's a sound that we've not heard before, we tend to pay a little bit more attention to that sound because we haven't had a chance to kind of put it in the background. If you've been in a room and the fan is on, you kind of pay attention to it at first, and then your brain starts to put it a little bit in the background. So if we pay attention to that sound more and more, it actually activates our limbic system, which is associated with our emotions, and it plays a role in, how we perceive that sound. Once we start paying more attention to that sound, it can make the sound seem even louder. This triggers a sort of feedback loop, or like a loop of negative emotions that can make the tinnitus, or this new sound that we're listening to, even more distressing or even louder. So awareness of this feedback loop is kind of the first step. It's like reframing how we think about our tinnitus is step one. I found this picture, which reminds me a little bit of the cochlea, but it also is like a good depiction of tinnitus because it's like this really dark, scary hole that we don't want to be in. So we have to kind of take ourselves out of there and reframe how we think about it. We can't use words like get rid of or fix or cure because we don't have a cure for tinnitus. We just have to think of it as more of a management. How can we manage our tinnitus? So it involves a lot of different strategies that can help alleviate and ideally just reduce our awareness of that tinnitus that we hear. Hearing aids are, if there is a hearing loss, and that's sort of causing some of this ringing that we have, then sound therapy or hearing aids can actually help a lot because it's going to bring environmental sounds back into our life. So, things that we can't hear because we have a hearing loss, if we're wearing hearing aids and we're amplifying that sound again, then we don't hear the tinnitus as much. It's kind of like a natural masking of the tinnitus with our environment. We also increase the neural activity in the auditory pathway because we're providing amplification to those hair cells. And most hearing aids actually have built-in sound generators that you can control yourself. You can play different sounds. Most of them have an app that play directly through the hearing aids that you can turn on and off as needed. And then there's other sound generators. It doesn't have to be a hearing aid. There are other sound generators and apps that can sort of provide some soothing background noise, especially in quiet or while sleeping. The last thing I'll mention is stress. Mindfulness and finding ways to manage our stress response can really help. So getting out for a walk, doing things that make us feel happy and better, trying not to get into this kind of negative cycle or this negative feedback loop. I find anytime that there's extra stress in someone's life who has tinnitus, the tinnitus is always worse. So finding your own sort of methods for reducing stress can really help as well. So advancements in hearing technology, this is all sort of advancing really rapidly in the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, particularly with the introduction of artificial intelligence. So not a new concept, but somewhat new to hearing aids is The hearing aid chip technology, being able to use AI to separate speech from noise, and it can do this more accurately than ever before. So we can actually capture real life, like real sound data, put that into a computer, pull it all apart, and we can actually train the hearing aid chip on what is speech supposed to sound like? What is a bird supposed to sound like? This is what noise looks like. And it's gotten a lot more advanced at kind of pulling apart the speech from any sort of background noise. There's also been this introduction of sensors. So there's motion sensors that tell the hearing aid whether we're moving or standing still. There's also some sensors that look at sound levels, how much background noise there is, how many people you might be talking with at any one given time. Are we looking at one person, or are we moving our head and engaging in a multi-person conversation? So it can kind of understand how you're engaging with your environment and adapt the programming to kind of help you in that given environment. We've seen advancements in batteries, so power. I would say 80% or more are probably using rechargeable batteries now. They're smaller and they're lasting longer. And there's lots more research being done to look at other sort of form factors for batteries. And then we still see improvements with connectivity, so Bluetooth. Um, and then we'll have this introduction soon of Auracast, which is a more kind of global Bluetooth technology. And I don't think it's imminent, but in the next few years, we'll see it being a little bit more mainstream, and we'll see better connectivity and better accessibility at bigger venues, arenas, airports, where it will be like a streaming system that you can connect to in some of these venues that will stream the sound directly to your hearing aids or your earbuds. So we'll see lots of advancements in connectivity in the near future as well. All of that said, it's just one piece, like the hearing aid is just one piece of the puzzle. The technology is constantly changing and constantly advancing, but for me, the most important factor is sort of being fitted with hearing aids by a certified clinician, someone who's going to kind of support you through the process. Adapting to hearing aids can be a real journey. It can sometimes take the brain a long time to adapt, and having a professional sort of guide that experience is really valuable. You might need multiple follow-ups, tweaks. We want to make sure that they're fit to exactly what you need. And so having that professional guidance can make all the difference between, a hearing aid that somebody wears and a hearing aid that sits in a drawer somewhere. So there's this important kind of service piece that comes with audiology, and I always want to make sure that that's at the forefront of the whole process. So while hearing aid technology is cool and it's advancing rapidly, the service and the clinical piece should always remain kind of at the forefront. Okay, so I have my third and final question for the audience is, how familiar are you with today's hearing aid technology? So yeah, very familiar. I wear hearing aids. I stay up to date. I know a little, but not much. I'm not familiar at all. And I didn't realize how much technology is involved. Okay, nice. So most people know a little, but not much. Not familiar at all. Yeah, and very familiar. It can be overwhelming, I think. Um, as the population ages, we have an aging population, and I feel like hearing loss and vision, um, next to mobility are like the top three um, sort of things that we can expect to become more prevalent. And there's just a lot of information out there, a lot of advertising. Um, and so, it's good because it's like increasing awareness and reducing stigma, but sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. So, um, yeah. Okay, so um, why get a hearing test? So, hearing loss can be gradual. It's not something that you notice right away until it's, sort of reached a certain level that it becomes more noticeable. Um, so it's always good to have a sort of baseline test, particularly over the age of 65, just part of your health routine. If we see an optometrist regularly to get our eyes checked, just having a hearing test completed is a really good place to start. If you've noticed that you're asking people to repeat or turning up the TV or feeling really tired after conversations or events, it's also a good time to check your hearing. And what to expect at a hearing test. It sounds like many of you have had a hearing test already, so you might already know, but um, ideally it starts with a conversation about your lifestyles, any concerns that you have. You'll be asked about your hearing. We sometimes recommend bringing a partner or a loved one into the appointment with you. Um, we'll make sure that the outer ear is okay. So we check, the outside of the ear, the inside, the ear canal, and we'll do a listening test in a soundproof room. And so you'll wear headphones, you'll listen for beeps. We do speech testing, we do speech and noise testing. We check your middle ear function. And then there's an explanation of your results and plenty of time to answer any questions. So, if hearing loss is there, present, diagnosed, different options will be presented to you, whether that's hearing loss, whether that's communication tips and strategies. Um, we talk about what your goals are and any sort of recommended next steps. Sometimes there's a need for a medical referral, so that's all taken care of if there's any sort of follow-up that's required. And our tests at Wavefront are anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. I get asked this question a lot about why we don't offer free hearing tests. It's tricky because a lot of people do, and some of the advertisements that we see, promote these offers for free hearing tests. Um, at Wavefront, it's really a clinical service that we provide, so it's always performed by a trained, certified audiologist. We spend almost an hour and a half with every new client. So we have plenty of time to do the extra testing that we might need to do, review any concerns, address any questions. You should always leave with a clear understanding of how you hear and what options are available if you need support. And so, yeah, we charge a similar fee to seeing a physio, optometrist, or other healthcare specialist. The fee for the hearing test is always deducted from the total cost of hearing aids. So if it's something that you decide is right for you and you want to move forward with, the cost of the hearing aid is always deducted from the total cost of the hearing aids. And so I always do caution to be wary of free hearing tests, which can sometimes be a quick check or just a screening, just to see whether you're a candidate for hearing aids. It can be, sometimes seen as a sales tactic. And always ask ahead of time if you will be getting a copy of the results, because sometimes you don't own the results if it's free. So just things to be mindful of. Throughout November and December, we'll do a promo on hearing tests to get to the end of the year. Try and get everybody hearing better for the holidays. So we're going to offer $65 hearing tests throughout November and December when you use this promo code HERE65. So you can call us or email us to book an appointment. It's audiology@wavefrontcentre.ca. We have 3 locations to choose from: Kitsilano, Quebec Street or Main Street area, and then Coquitlam. Or you can call us if you prefer, and our client service coordinators at the front can help you out. Okay, so we have lots of time for questions. I had a feeling I would get through that in about 35 to 40 minutes, so I will unshare my screen, and then Beth and I can address some audience questions.
If you have a question, you can type it in the Q&A box down below or in the chat.
I can see you've been answering some already. I could read some of these out, I guess. I don't know if everybody's seen them. Yeah, one interesting one is, do you have any info about Apple AirPods being approved for hearing aid use in Canada? So not yet. So OTC, or over-the-counter hearing aids, not approved by Health Canada. It's new in the States. In the US, it was just recently approved, but nothing for Canada yet. It will be an interesting time. They are currently only sort of recommended for mild to moderate hearing loss and nothing beyond that. So always make sure you have a hearing test completed first, because like I mentioned at the beginning, trying to figure out where the hearing loss is occurring is really important. So if there's a hearing loss that's from something other than inner hair cell damage, it's really important that that's addressed before providing amplification. So sometimes the hearing loss requires medical clearance or additional investigation or testing. Yeah.
Rebecca, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Yeah.
Is there a way to allow the audience to turn their cameras on? I only see like 6 tiles, but I know there's
Mm,
68 people in the room. There's some people who want to sign their question, but there
okay.
seems to be some limitation on how to turn the camera on.
That might be some help from
Oh,
Stephen.
Yeah, we do have a raised hand here from Patricia Miller, so I've enabled her camera. If Patricia would like to share her question. If not, and she pressed the wrong button, that's okay too. If anyone else has any questions, you could use the raised hand feature and you could ask them directly, or you could use the Q&A function there. And I see a lot of questions coming in, so maybe we won't dwell on Patricia for right now, and we'll keep
Okay,
moving.
I can answer a few, and
Yep.
Beth can chime in too. Patricia does have a question. She wants to use ASL. So
Okay,
her
great.
Patricia's screen is black. But if she turns her camera on, I think we should be able to see her. I'll answer a couple in the meantime. How does wax buildup affect your hearing? So this can vary depending on how much wax is occluding in the ear canal. Um, Having earwax is normal. It happens. It's when we get this kind of impacted earwax that prevents sound from traveling through. That's when we start to see some hearing loss there. So it really depends. Would you add anything to that, Beth?
No, that's right. It's just
Yeah.
that hopefully temporary hearing loss, and then ideally when the wax is removed, the problem should resolve.
There's a question here on environmental sounds louder. Wouldn't this aggravate the tinnitus? So actually the opposite. People find their tinnitus is most distracting or disturbing when it's quiet. It can be perceived a little bit louder when we don't have any sort of natural masking happening. Hearing aids are providing that amplification and bringing sounds back into our lives. And sometimes just that increase in volume actually makes the tinnitus go away or seem a lot softer. We do offer tinnitus treatment even if you don't have a hearing loss. Yeah, and it is quite common to have a profound hearing loss and still get tinnitus. Some of the research that's looking at what causes it points to that because they've had like the auditory nerve severed, and so there's nothing for it to transmit to, and people can still hear a perception of ringing. So there is a question here on explaining how the new hearing aids that have AI work detecting movement and location of where the sound is coming from. This is a complicated process, I guess, or I'll try to answer it as best I can, but one company has 4 sensors and they all do something different. So one is a motion sensor that detects whether we're standing still or walking, running, biking. The other has a sensor of like an accelerometer. So are we turning our head side to side? And then the other 2 are actually looking more at acoustics. So how close are the people that I'm speaking to? How clear is that speech signal? And how much environmental background noise is there? And the 4 sensors sort of work together with the overall processing to kind of dictate what the hearing aid processing should do. How can we optimize that listening experience for the user? Best typing an answer to that one. So I had any hearing test that you have at Wavefront Centre is valid for 6 months. And this is a college guideline. So the College of Health Professionals for Audiologists, we can use a hearing test that is valid for 6 months and use that to fit hearing aids. Beyond that, we have to do another test because there might have been a change to the hearing, and we want to make sure that we're fitting and verifying those hearing aids exactly correct. I'm just trying to go through some more.
Hi, Rebecca. We have Robert who'd also like to speak.
Okay.
Robert, if you could turn your camera on, the button is in the bottom left of your screen.
Hi. Just wait. I can't find it.
We can hear you.
You can hear us. You've turned it off, dear. What? You've turned it off. What? Your mute is off. Yeah, but he wants the camera. Doesn't matter. Hi, we're visually impaired, so the camera doesn't really do us much good. But anyway, what I was curious about is the it's like say if you were to go to a concert. You know, I know a concert can be very loud. So how would someone with hearing aids adapt to a concert?
Do you want to take that one, Beth?
I just thought I'd throw that one in for interest.
It's a great question.
Yeah, so it really depends on the volume of the concert. If you're going to, more of an acoustic set, I would encourage someone to wear your hearing aids at a concert. Good hearing aids are designed to process music a little bit differently than speech, and they do a pretty good job of it. Hearing aids are not a replacement for noise protection. So if you are in a situation with hazardous level of noise, I do recommend hearing protection there, even if someone already has a hearing loss.
Okay.
And we do make customized musicians' earplugs for people who are really music enthusiasts, music lovers, that can maintain the quality of music, unlike regular kind of foam inserts. So if music is very important to you, um, you could invest in a pair of those.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I know Patricia had a question, but I'm not sure if she could figure out there she is. Her camera.
Patricia, your camera is just in the bottom left of your screen there, if you're able to find it.
Can't. I'm trying to see if I can turn it on for her, but I can't.
Yeah, I'm not able to do that either. There's no video icon for me to click. Yeah, you'd look in the bottom left. I assume you're on unless you're on a tablet or a phone, it could be different, but on a computer screen, it'd be bottom left, there's a video icon there. Should have a video. Maybe we'll come back to Patricia then.
Okay. There's a question here about noise, decibels. So I know a lot of phones you can install a sound level meter. It's not 100% accurate, but it can give you a good idea as to how loud that environment is. Um, Noise is tricky because it's like this logarithmic scale. So the louder the volume, the less time we can be exposed to it. Um, so there's certain levels of noise where, you can only be in that level of noise for an hour. The level at which it can become dangerously loud is 85 decibels over a really prolonged period. I can't really remember, Beth, but it might be like 8 hours. Yeah. Once we go to 90, it sort of gets less. I don't know if it cuts in half, but like 4 hours at 90 decibels, and you might start to get some hearing damage. So the louder it is, 100, 110, 120 decibels, we can do damage a lot quicker. Generally, if you have to shout to hear someone, it's not good to stay in that environment for a super, super long time.
Several questions about wax. One is, do you recommend having your doctor flush your ears regularly? Not regularly. I mean, wax does have a protective function in the ear, so a certain amount is completely normal. Now, sometimes that can go into the too much range, and that's when, if there is too much and occluding the ear canal, we would recommend that it be removed. But I wouldn't say it should be done regularly unless someone is a known heavy wax producer. We do remove wax at Wavefront. You can make an appointment for that if that's something you think you need.
Okay, got a few more minutes. Just trying to answer and read at the same time. Let's see.
I believe Cheryl Devine's put her hand up. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, I don't have an icon on the side. It just says audio for me. So
Okay.
I'll just speak. Yeah, so I don't know why. You were saying earlier, Rebecca, that when you're looking into the ear, sometimes you might have to go and ask, send us off to some other doctor. What is it that you see, or what is that you found, or what is it, and why are you doing that? Like, what have you discovered, or just
Yeah,
curious?
yeah, that's a good question. It could be a number, it could be many different things. Um, if there's an ear infection or if there's fluid in the ear, we can see that when we do otoscopy and we look at the eardrum. Um, Anything that doesn't look like a clear, normal eardrum, we will often refer for further investigation. It's kind of not in our scope to, um, diagnose, but we can pass onwards. The other things that we will refer to either family physician or ENT could be an asymmetrical hearing loss. So if you have one ear that's a lot worse than the other, and we don't have an explanation for that, or if the hearing loss is from a problem with the middle ear. So if there's something along that pathway, whether the eardrum is really stiff or the three little bones aren't properly transmitting that signal to the inner ear, or if there's a lot of fluid in there, we call that a conductive hearing loss.
Okay.
And we'll refer for that. So we sort of have a list of, things that we call red flags that we would refer to a physician for further investigation. And then they can send you back to us for hearing aids, if that's the route someone wants to go, as long as they have medical clearance.
Right. Okay. Just one more question. How long, say if you say, okay, you need hearing aids, how long from the time I see you that day and I said, yes, I'm going to get hearing aids, I have to come back and get fitted or however you do, like what's the time period?
So we don't keep hearing aids like on stock, so we order them for you. We work with all of the hearing aid manufacturers in Canada. There's like five big common hearing aid manufacturers, and we work equally with all of them at Wavefront. So we sort of, help you choose your hearing aid of choice, and then we place that order. Typically, people are fit within 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Following a hearing test.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll just chime in that we've got Patricia here now. Thanks for your patience, Patricia.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah, so I'm interested in finding out, but I haven't been able to find something that kind of matches. Now, I was born deaf, and I have grown up noticing that I'm starting to have some tinnitus, which is very annoying. Like, I'm deaf and I don't understand. Like, it's not that, like, I was born deaf. It's not something that I occurred later in life. So why would I have tinnitus now? So it just kind of perplexes me as to why I would be experiencing that being born deaf.
Beth, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Not so I can't say for anyone specifically. Sometimes tinnitus has a medical cause of, beyond just kind of standard hearing loss. So normally I would recommend some sort of medical consult. So it could be a medication that has tinnitus as a side effect. So it could be any number of things
Really?
that way. That is, although tinnitus and hearing loss go hand in hand, there are other things that can be the cause of tinnitus. And so if it's sudden in nature, I usually recommend some type of medical evaluation just to rule out any of those types of issues.
Okay. I do have another question then. Now, I am using the older day kind of hearing aid, and I loved it. It's been great. Now they're kind of setting up, what are they calling it? I'm not sure. It's starting, it's like I hate it. It's the sound matching. It's frustrating me. It's not it's not like the old days, like it was perfect. Now I'm finding that there's some changes and stuff like that. I would prefer the older manufacturer, but it's not seeming to be an option. It seems to be obsolete and they've kind of gone with these new ones. But as an individual, I liked what was before. It really worked well with myself being deaf. Maybe other people that have hearing loss that's gradual and they want these kind of other technologies and stuff like that. But for myself, I would have preferred what I had before. I find it worse for myself. I get this constant ringing that keeps happening, and then I stopped wearing it. I just quit. I stopped wearing the hearing aid, which was really disappointing because I did like to hear things. Like, with the technology, I had to put it off. I had to put it in a box, put it off to the side, but it is a little disappointing.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that from a lot of deaf people who have used those older style hearing aids. They're usually analog, and the core of it is hearing aid
Yes,
manufacturers.
that's it. The
Yeah.
analog. That is what
Uh,
it is. Like, why would they have gone away with that?
yeah.
Why that, I would, for the individuals that are deaf, that would have been something to keep and then use other options for individuals that are losing their hearing
Yeah.
slowly or gradually over time. It's very disappointing.
Yes. The number of times a deaf person has said this to me.
It is
So
quite common.
yes. So
Well, can they
ultimately,
bring it back? Is it something that can be said, like bring back the analog?
yeah, so the
Like why
hearing aid
people like, we're not all the same, right? So bring
right.
back what was working.
Yeah, they moved to digital and like everything sort of moved into a digital world and then hearing aids followed.
Yeah.
The goal is to like
It doesn't work for me.
yeah, to fit you like as linear as possible, which like sometimes we can try and make it as analog as possible through programming. I don't know what you were wearing before, or who you were seeing, but there are sometimes things you can try from like a programming perspective to get it as close to that analog signal as you can. I don't know that they're going to bring them back, unfortunately.
Just to have some respect for the deaf people. Everybody's like focusing on latent deaf individuals, but why not still respect the deaf individuals that still would like to have, that's just respect. That's all, just
Yeah.
to have the same kind of availability or option.
Yeah. Okay, we are nearing 6 o'clock, I think. I know there's some other questions there um, that we can do our best to follow up on or answer at some point. And I did put up the email for you, Stephen, or for communications, so people can always send in questions to communications@wavefrontcenter.ca.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.